Could be one of the biggest and most epic weeks in crypto. We're going to break it all down for you guys today. Don't miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. There's a lot happening this week. Of course, we will get to the reason that Bitcoin is pumping and also take a look at some of the market from an altcoin standpoint. Is there some big moves on the horizon? I do want to thank our sponsor today, and that is Tangem. If you guys are looking at going into self-custody, you should be. This is a good spot to start. Just go over to tangem.com. And you can pick up your own wallet. It's a card. It works in conjunction with an app. Very slick, very easy to use, and also easy to set up. So even if you're brand new to self-custody, this is a great product to try out. So just use our link down below and you guys can get started. Taking a look quickly at the market, I was just going to zoom in on the market cap holding at 2.28 trillion right now, up about 4%, almost 5%, 24-hour volume is up significantly, 96%. So we're seeing a lot of activity going on the market right now. I want to jump into one of the clips today that breaks down, is this market going to hold? Take a look.
The last time you were on, I think your basic thesis was that market's still solid through the end of the year, but in the meantime, there could be some volatility and maybe even a pullback. Now I think you're saying it's been more stable than what you're expecting, and it has to do with liquidity and cash on the sidelines more than anything else.
Yes, that's right. You're right. We've kind of been sort of, I think, fooled by seasonality because we thought markets would be hesitant before, the elections, and it's October. But we've seen this market be incredibly resilient. So I've underestimated how strong this market's been. I think it really shows macro data is becoming less important, and it's now the fact that a lot of cash has been on the sidelines. For the last 2 years, investors expected a recession, or many thought when the curve uninverts, we got a recession, but at the end of the day, there's $6 trillion of cash on the sidelines, and October has turned out to be a great month. I mean, it feels like investors are underinvested in stocks. I think there's people who've dreaded 2024, thinking this is the year we slip into a recession, and instead, and we're seeing it with earnings, companies have been really resilient.
One of the things that Lee is kind of leaning into here in terms of the markets in general is the global component. One of the things that play into that is China. Goldman Sachs, of course, upgrades China under their growth forecast on their latest stimulus. Remember, the Saturday date was when they were supposedly going to announce. They didn't give the number, but the likelihood is we're going to start see more solidity on what that number is going to be in terms of the injection into the market for them. One of the things they're pointing at right here in this article, Beijing unveiled a series of measures shoring up growth plans for a greater public spending announced over the weekend, and then China's gross domestic product to expand to 4.9 this year, up from 4.7. That's a big deal. It also lifted its growth prediction for next year from 4.7 to 4.3. From 4.3. That's significant. That's a massive growth when you look at GDP in general. That, of course, means a lot of stimulus into the markets. Bond markets most likely will get reactions to this as well. And that goes back to the point that Lee was talking about, which, of course, is liquidity. Liquidity into the market. A lot of people having money on the sideline gets back to even what Matt Hogan and I have been talking about on our last interview, and that is this wall of capital that is just waiting for a play to happen. And in his opinion, he thinks that ETFs will play into that. But if you look at Bitcoin right now, there's the daily on Bitcoin. There's that nice green candle coming up. But really, if you look over the last 4 days, from that 59 low, a lot of people were shorting this. And of course, a lot of Bitcoin shorts ended up getting liquidated over this period of time, just in the last 4 days, as Bitcoin starts to top out a little over 66,000. Now, the question is does this break through and do we see it move on to the next layer? It's still waffling right now. I don't necessarily see that this is going to continue this storm at this point. However, there are some key things happening this week that I think will potentially indicate that. And of course, that part of that is going to be the election. Kamala Harris, of course, is unveiling a crypto campaign supporting for both crypto and cannabis. And a couple of points that she'll get into, and I'll show you guys something here specifically. But Matt Hogan made a statement about this. Serious question, is this a statement or the extent of the Harris pivot people are excited about, or did she say more in the live setting? This was the question mark of to what the statement was around what was going into the program. Now, we looked up the actual intent of what they were wanting to do, and it's the opportunity agenda for black men. However, the statement here actually says everyone, but it is enabling black men to hold digital assets to benefit from financial innovation. Mainly, there's more than 20% of black Americans who have owned cryptocurrency. Interesting that they just woke up to this. That's a problem because they weren't aware of what was actually happening. But the fact that they are coming around and trying to do something could play into this. But one other statement right here, she will make sure owners and investors of digital assets benefit from regulatory framework that black men and others who participate in this market are protected. There's no real clarity here of how they would be protected, but it does get into the scenario of there's an intent here. Whether you think this is just, again, posturing for votes because of their position right now, losing the black male vote in, I shouldn't say losing because they still have a large percentage of, but not getting the amount that would be indicative of what we've seen in the past, both from Biden's campaign and also all the way back to Obama's campaign. So there's a lot at risk right now for Kamala Harris, and I think this is the thing that we have to look at. Currently, if you look at the election forecast on Polymarket, Trump continues to widen his lead. So we'll see a lot around this. Now, again, all this it indicates whether or not this will be good for crypto if maybe there is a silent Harris vote out there. And if there is, could Trump end up losing on the back end, thinking that they were in a good position? I don't know. This is going to get very dicey toward the end. Again, let me know what you guys think in terms of how this affects crypto overall, if it's Kamala White House or if it's a Trump White House. I want to go to a couple other points right here. Trump, of course, is getting ready to launch the crypto project World Liberty Financial. That actually happens tomorrow. So there's going to be people, I think there's 100,000 accredited investors ahead of the WLFI launch. And of course, the key here is there's a lot of vesting involved here, typical crypto. I do get that. But the fact that there's a lot of people involved in this is pretty indicative, I think, of a potential here of a lot of people thinking that Trump is going to win this White House going forward. Other things that are happening, Solana, of course, is starting to move. Total value locked surpasses $6 billion for the first time since January of 2022. That's another big issue right there. And, you know, we've been looking at Solana in general, and it's still one of those scenarios where there is a lot more competitiveness in this space around where Solana is setting than it has had in the past. If you look at DeFi Llama, you can kind of see, yes, it has had that position, but it has been somewhat kind of sideways here from most of 2024 once we hit that all-time high, but pretty much sideways since then. The real question is that does it continue to get injection from the market? And do we see Solana leading out the altcoins this cycle? Other things that are happening, you got to look at a Vitalik's article on Ethereum. Now, is there a possibility, because there was quite a bit of a stream here on things that Vitalik was wanting to make sure that Ethereum continues to build on speed. Of course, everybody knows the expensive to join right now. This is the problem. Lower staking requirements, most likely. We've talked about this before, and I'm going to zoom in on that for you guys. Lower staking requirements, this could be a possibility that could come faster than many people are thinking. All of this still could be very positive for ETH. The question is can they accelerate these changes before this bull run really gets going, even though I think we're still on the early stages of it. And this is potentially a time where a lot of people are looking for marketplace. When you think about marketplace, the Avalanche ecosystem is absolutely on fire right now. If you look at some of the things that have happened just in the last week, I don't know that it was a surprise to people like us, or even if you're watching this show, people like you, is the success of what we saw with Gunzilla and, of course, Off the Grid. So early access began, thing went crazy, all the streamers loved it. I mean, the surprise, I think it was a surprise to most of the traditional gaming to realize that this game really worked, and it was something that was fantastic to play, very fun. And guess what? It has a crypto marketplace. A couple other things in here. They've got the 9,000 network upgrade coming. The summit is happening this week in Argentina, and of course their incentive program. The other thing that's kind of critical here is almost 2 million in AVAX is getting repurchased from the Luna Foundation. That's about 45 million right now. That I think is a perfect timing, because I think we're going to see the Treasury take advantage of that as the market starts to react to what's happening within the AVAX ecosystem. The AVAX ecosystem, of course, you have to consider right now, Grid just reached 5.5 million wallets. They're watching the wise of Web3 gaming. This is Amin, their CEO, talking about this with Avalanche. 53 million transactions was the surprise to me. And remember, this is not fully released yet. So imagine what this is going to be. Think that 100x. Because once this goes out onto Avalanche and it's fully available to play, I think we are going to see an unbelievable market rush into off the grid, and many more Web3 games starting to take advantage of that in kind of trailblazing way. So definitely some things to keep an eye on. Dexalot is another one that we're watching right now as they continue to see their daily volume continuing to spike. I anticipate we're probably going to see some things coming out at the event in Argentina around the ecosystem. So watch the ecosystem, much like what happens at Swell when you look at Breakpoint with Solana. Watch these ecosystems. Dexalot is one we're keeping a very close eye on, along with others. Of course, the other one to watch here, of course, is Aerodrome, continuing to dominate liquidity on base. And this is something we've talked about before as well, continuing to climb. Now, if I was looking at one or the other within the ecosystem, yeah, I think I would probably still stay with Dexalot as the play if this was, depending on where you are. Some people may already own both these tokens, but it is one to watch. Just to give an example of Aerodrome and where they've come from right here, this is Sunday, September the 7th, and Aerodrome up 186%. So right here, I want to take a look also at the Dexalot chart. And you'll notice here there's a lot of movement kind of sideways within this range. So it hasn't taken on, now sure, it's been a nice move here over this period of time, but this is just the last couple of days. So this is the one that I think has a lot more opportunity. If we go over here to the weekly, and I want to just show you on the long range where Dexalot has been. So you can kind of see there, guys. Look at that. This thing is really in its just beginning phase. So if they drop anything that is amazing this week, this project is going to react. And it could be reacting at the right time, meaning the Avalanche ecosystem reacting at the right time. You look at what's happening with Off the Grid. You look at what's happening with AVAX in general. And a lot of these L1s are going to be launching. We're going to see the Pulsar launch. There's so many things going on that could attribute to a lot more activity within Avalanche. The other one, of course, we're watching is SUI, and of course, Cetus protocol. This is kind of like the Uniswap for SUI, but Unstoppable Cetus protocol surpassed 1 billion USD in weekly. One other thing to be aware of if you're on the SUI wallet is that you can now use USDC native. So that's a big advancement. We actually had Evan on to talk about this, Evan Cheng, their CEO, co-CEO, on last week. And that video did really well. Go back and watch that video because it was basically preempting the move with Circle and the fact that USDC was going to be available within SUI. And of course, you look at the market right now on that one. Let me go over to SUI real quick. This is the move that we've been talking about these last several weeks. This is the move that we're in. This is the weekly chart right there. If you look at that move since the low right there at 58 cents to where we're hovering right now, almost 300%. So nice moves on SUI for some of you guys that are out there going with this one. I still like this one. I think at long term, now could it be in a position where it could be shorted? You know, I just had Parrot on last week. He was kind of shorting, I think, a little too early because it was still, many people were looking at that $2 range to short on, and it didn't happen. It actually blasted through, and we saw it, of course, perform over the weekend in a big way. So, but if you look at where Solana holding that 5% up, you look at Avalanche also holding a position right now as it continues to climb over the last several days. I think this is ready for a breakout. Could it break into that $30 range is the question. That's the one I'm watching very closely. Last up, of course, we will be at the Ripple Swell event tomorrow. And this event, we're going to try to catch a handful of very key interviews that I think will give us some indications as to what is being announced, not only at the event, but what does this mean going forward for Ripple and XRP. So make sure and be tuned to the channel. If you're not subscribed right now, do it. Get subscribed, hit that little bell when we do our live streams. Then, of course, you're going to get notified. That's one thing to be aware of. And we do try to keep track on those as quickly as we can to bring more of those to you, but a lot of times we'll just do the uploads to make it quicker for you guys. But make sure, and of course, hit me out there on X. Join our Diamond Circle. It's very easy. We always leave a link down below. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.